Year 10 Trigonometry Exam Practice Question 26. A new hike for bushwalkers took them along a different route. From the starting point, walk 18 kilometers at a bearing of 300 degrees, true bearing. Change direction and walk 23 kilometers at a bearing of 200 degrees, true bearing. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to draw us our picture. So to start off with, I'm just going to draw in red our compass for our starting point. Okay, so now I've got my compass. This is going to help me out with then being able to draw, because it says walk 18 kilometers at a bearing of 300 degrees. True bearing, that is 90, 180, 270. So that just means this here is 30 degrees. So I know from here all the way to here is 30. Now again, I'm going to draw another compass. This makes it a lot easier for us to be able to see. Now, with our compass, I also want us to think about that if this is 30, then this part out here is also 30. So I can fill that in straight away, because I know this part has to be 30 as well. So from that, let's look at our next part. And it says we're changing directions at this point, and we are going at a bearing of 200 degrees true bearing. That is 90, 80, and 20 degrees over. So I'll put that here. Again, this part here is 20 degrees. The whole angle from here to here, well, I know if this is a 90 angle, it's 90 take 30 is 60, plus an extra 20 equals 80 in total. So now I've got my whole angle for that side. I know at the start I walked 18 kilometers. And on this side here, I walked 23 kilometers. So I'm starting to get all of my information out. Now it asks me, find the direct distance from the starting point to the end point. So I need to join these two together and look at this distance right here. So straight away I can see I've got one full angle, and I've also got two sides. That assists me in now being able to use that information to find my unknown by using the cosine rule. So the cosine rule is a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine A. Now I'm going to make this angle here A, and my unknown side A. This angle over here B, and side B, angle C, and side C. So I don't know my A, but I do know my B. My B is 23, so it'll be 23 squared, plus my C, which is 18, so it'll be 18 squared, minus 2 times B, so times 23, times C, which is 18, times cosine A, which is 80 degrees. Now I'm going to simplify that. So if I go 23 squared plus 18 squared, I am left with 853. And if I go 2 times 23 times 18, I am left with 828. And it's timesing with cosine 80 degrees. Now I just need to solve my right-hand side. So if I put that into a calculator, a to the power of 2 is equal to 709.219. The final step that I need to do is now I need to square root both sides, and I find out my a, which is 26.63. So that gives me this information for a, 26.63. Now we are going to use the same rule, but this time I'm not going to have an angle. I'm going to have all of my sides. And we are going to find our angle. So, because we are looking at angle A, and we are for our part B saying we want to find the bearing of the starting point from the end point. The first thing we need to do is really understand what that bearing is. So before we get started with our B, I'm just going to delete this so I've got some extra space for my working out. So I'm just going to rewrite my cosine formula, but this time I'm just going to start off with my c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. Likewise before, same thing, I'm just going to put my information in. So this time I know my c is 18, so it's 18 squared is equal to my a, which is 26.63 squared, plus my b, which is 23 squared, minus 2 times my a, which is 26.63 times my b, which is 23 cosine, and my c, that's unknown. So the next step that I need to think about is I need to simplify it. So 18 squared is 324. I'm going to simplify this part in one go. 26.63 squared plus 23 squared. Take away 2 times 26.63 times 23. So I will simplify that into two parts. This part here, I've just underlined, which is my 2 squared. That is equal to 1,238.1569. Then I'm going to look at 2 times 26.63 times 23. And that equals 1,224.98 cosine c. So the next step is I want to get rid of the 1,238. So I take it away from both sides. That leaves me with negative 914.1569 is equal to negative 1,224. So 1,224.98 cosine c. The next step is we need to get cosine c by itself. So we need to divide both sides by negative 1,224. That gives me cosine of c equaling 0.7462. To get c by itself, I need to do the inverse. So the inverse is in the inverse of cosine. So cosine negative 1 on the calculator of 0.7462. That gives me the angle of 41.7 degrees. So I'm just going to put that into my triangle now, because this is going to help me out with finding the next part out. So if I know the angle here is 41.7, if I think about this in terms of my understanding of now I've got that, so I'm just going to clear this up. So on this point, we would have done this as thinking of it like a compass, just like we did before. But so if we know that this part in here, this angle in here, from this parallel line on the compass to this parallel line, these angles will be the same. That's going to help us to find the true bearing. So if we go 180, take away 80, take away 41.7, and take away 30, we find that this angle right here has to equal 28.3. Which also means this angle here equals 28.3. That helps me out with my next part, because then to find the true bearing, I need to go 90, take away 28.3. That gives me my true bearing from the endpoint to the starting point, which is 61.7 true bearing.